Hello everyone. Well, it is finally time for another trial video. That's right, we have managed to get the world first clear on the 11th trial in the game, the T11 Duel of Fairness. Now, this trial is relatively challenging, especially since it is a pretty heavy DPS check, but once you understand the mechanics, it should at least flow smoothly. So let's jump right in and take a look at what mechanics this trial has, and then we will take a look at the video together and see how it all unfolds in practice. So the Duel of Fairness, it is like I said, a pretty challenging fight, but let's go through starting with he's got a lot of skills, but once you understand it all, it's pretty easy to go through. So we're going to start with World Collapses. So the way that this boss works, you have 3 sectors very similar to the previous trial, which was the Thunderbird here, the Lightning Clash at the Golden. In fact, the boss is dropped off by the bird, so this is the bird's revenge on us, the players. So when you move sectors, there's 3 sectors, like I said. When you move sectors, every 6 times you move, you will blow up the sector you're standing in. So the way this works is when your character moves between sections, between the sectors, you will see a number above your head that counts down. When your number goes to 1, the next move you make will blow up the sector. Now, this does a lot of damage, but as you get these challenge bonuses, that reduce the damage the boss that players take, and etc., it will be a little more manageable. But at the very start, when you first unlock this will deal a lot of damage, so you just have to be mindful of your moves as you move to avoid the rest of the mechanics. Just pay attention to the number above your head, and if possible, if you move with the group and then you see you have the number 1 above your head, it might sometimes be worth just moving off to the side, blowing yourself up, and then moving back into the group, for example. So just be mindful as you move from sector to sector. Every 6 moves you will blow up the sector you're in and deal a lot of damage to everyone else. The next ability is the Curse Beam. Now this beam shows up by having this 4-pronged red effect on the ground around 2 players, and each player has to go basically on the left and right side. So generally speaking, this fight most of the time you're going to spend in the middle. And then for Curse Beam, 1 player goes to the left, 1 player goes to the right, and everyone else, the other 2 players, stay in the middle. And this lasts for 8 seconds, and when it's over, the particle disappears, the ground effect disappears, and then you're safe again. So just be mindful when Curse Beam happens that the 2 players with it should go to the left and right of the arena, and the rest of the players stay middle. That's how you avoid the damage from Curse Beam. Next up, you have the Raging Storm, which is probably the ability, just to say, the boss does use his abilities relatively randomly, but Raging Storm seems to be one he uses quite often. So what Raging Storm is, it's somewhat similar to the last trial's orb mechanic, except it just highlights a zone and you have this expanding explosion in the zone. So he summons 4 storm orbs 1 by 1. When it detonates, it deals massive damage and reduces the unit's attack, but you don't have to worry about the reduction of attack because this will one-shot anyone who doesn't move in time. Now, the one thing you have to keep in mind about the Raging Storm is when you see your sectors above is lit up like it's gonna blow up, you need to move instantly. And when I say instantly, I mean instantly. You have to have your finger hovering on the move button for when you see your sector getting blown up, because if you hesitate for even half a second, you will die to Raging Storm. This is a very, very fast explosion. So please be mindful. The second you see he says Raging Storm and he begins to cast, you have to be ready to move out of your sector immediately. Not like, oh, have a cup of tea. No, immediately. Like, with your finger hovering over the button, ready to click it instantly. Otherwise, you will die. Don't know how many times I can say it. Hopefully it's clear. Next up, you have Fatal Cage. This is another ability where everyone has to be ready to move. So the way this works is it randomly chooses a player, and after charging up, it summons a prison that deals massive damage split among all units in the same sector. So when he does Fatal Cage, you will see someone is targeted by it, and then everyone has to go to the same sector as that player and wait for the full animation and particle effects and everything to go off before it's safe to move again. So Fatal Cage, you have to group up and make sure you split that damage, otherwise it will deal huge damage to everyone. Star Hammer Strike, this is a single target boss hitting ability, so the tank just has to, single target tank hitting ability. So the tank just has to be mindful of this ability, and whenever the tank sees this Star Hammer Strike, the tank needs to save their shield for this. So if you're a tank and you're playing this fight, this is the ability you're going to always use your shield for. Do not use your shield for anything else. Even in a scary situation, let the healer keep you alive and save your shield for Star Hammer Strike, because this deals huge amounts of damage. Huge amounts of damage. So next up is a very important ability, and this will probably be the biggest roadblock for most players until you get enough DPS to deal with it. So, Decisive Hammer Blow. Enter the duel state and randomly summons a golden area of vulnerability that increases damage dealt in that area by 200%. And if the boss takes 2% damage within a certain period, then it leaves the duel state, otherwise deals massive damage to all targets. So the way this ability works is you're going to see a sector light up in gold, and you have to quickly go into that area and you will deal double damage while there. It's very important that you depending on your DPS output, like I said, this is a very strong DPS check. And most likely what you'll find is the best way to approach at least the first two duel states in the battle would be at the start of the battle, don't immediately use your awakening, save it for the duel state. Even if it means you do slightly less DPS until it happens, you're not going to be able to burst through the initial duel state unless you do this. So save your awakening for the first one, maybe two of these abilities, because then what happens is if you're playing this fight right, you're going to have stacking Melamon, you're going to have stacking abilities in your talents. So as the fight goes on, you're going to progressively deal more and more damage, but the first two duels are going to be very hard DPS checks, so save your awakening for at least the first two duels, and after that you might be able to put your awakening back on auto. But basically it's like the same ability where there's a blue bar under the HP bar and you deal enough damage and it interrupts the boss's ability. Next up you have the Beast King Frenzy, and it is a very important dispel. You enter the frenzy state, increasing attack and attack speed, and this will basically wipe the tank out in very short time. Even with a healer's barrier up, it will barely be survivable. So the second he uses this, you'll see he gains a little swirly icon next to his buffs on his HP bar, and you need to dispel this right away. Now, one thing I will say, this boss is such a DPS check that this is the one very rare occasion where I will say that the tank needs to run Dispel for this, not the DPS, because you need all the DPS you can get to push past the enrage timer and as well for the duel states. So instead of a DPS dropping some DPS to run Dispel, your tank should run Dispel. So that's very important. So let your tank run Dispel, swap out Warcry for Dispel, and then use your shield and banner. So that's how you deal with this. Let the tank dispel this, but keep in mind, in most fights that aren't such a big DPS check, it would most likely be a DPS who would be dispelling. In this case, you need all the DPS you can get, so do not force your DPS to dispel this. Give your tank that responsibility. Pressure is just AoE damage to all players. And then the enrage, as you can see here, just over 8 minutes. And if you don't beat it by the enrage, it's GG pretty much. So that's the time limit you have to beat the boss in, and we came in just under the mark. It was quite a long fight, but we did just beat out the enrage. So keep in mind, like I said, huge DPS check fight, but now that you understand these mechanics, I think it should flow pretty smoothly. So as of course, with always the best way to see these mechanics in practice, we're going to now jump into the fight, and then we're going to look at how these mechanics play out in the clear that we managed to get. So bear with me 1 second, I will transition over to the video. Okay, now here we go. Let's jump back in and take a look at how this fight goes. So as we start off, you can see by how slow so here's the first hammer strike. You can see the tank used the shield and it still did half his HP. So this is a very high damage ability. And you can see how slowly the boss's HP is going down. we are holding back our awakening. There. So this is the first. I'll pause for a second. So this is the first duel state. So he uses Decisive Hammer Blow, and you can see the left hand zone is lit up gold. So we immediately move here and pop awakening because we need to get rid of this blue bar. If we don't get rid of this blue bar in time, the boss is going to use his huge ability, which is a party wipe. Even with barrier, it's not enough to mitigate the damage. So you can see here, blue bar is slowly going, slowly going. Okay, we just get it in time. Great. So now we continue the fight. Now Curse Beam, this is Curse Beam. So you can see here, one player on the left-hand side, one player on the right-hand side, and you can see, I'll just go back again quickly. You can see this red mark around the player that has the ability on them. So those two players go to the left and right side, and everyone else goes to the middle until the Curse Beam is over. And that's how you avoid that ability without much trouble. Now we have Raging Storm. Now Raging Storm, you can see here, it lights up a zone, and you literally have to move out instantly. Boom. Okay? Instant move out. So it does this 4 times. It can target the same zone multiple times like it did here, but he will use these orbs multiple times. Now we have the Fatal Cage. You can see everyone has to run to the left. Now, if you saw this, look again. So you see the numbers above people's heads? Someone went to 0 and blew us up. Now, luckily, it didn't deal enough damage to be troublesome, but you can see someone has 3 moves left, someone has 0 moves left. So the 0 move person here blew us all up, and you can see that hit of damage here. Now, it didn't do that much damage to us because, like I said, we have a couple challenger buffs active. But if you're in the first, when you've just unlocked the boss, this will deal a lot more damage and it'll be quite troublesome. So just be mindful of the number above your head as you're moving between zones so you don't inadvertently go to 0 like this and blow the party up. So it's a good example of this, but luckily it didn't cause us any trouble here. So Fatal Cage is a long animation there. Finally, it's all done, and you can see here I was just checking something in the fight here, just wanted to see. Okay, then we have the second gold, and I popped the awakening a little bit late, but anyway, it was fine, and then I put it back on auto for the rest of the fight. But you can see, I mean, we're a minute and a half in, the boss is still at 67% in the first HP bar. This is a very, very tanky boss. And then pretty much from now on, it's going to be the same mechanics you've just seen, cycling through. So Curse Beam again, players go left and right. Raging Storm once again, and then you can see, so left, then middle, everyone moves very quickly. I blew up the left and I have to move right again very quickly. Everyone moves left, so there again, someone accidentally blew us up, but now we have another Fatal Cage. And from now on, I will just let the fight play out because it'll just simply repeat these mechanics until the end. I will go back quickly and highlight this. This was the Frenzy here. You can see Beast King Frenzy, and then right after, you can see this is the Frenzy mark right here on the boss's debuff bar here. So that's what you're looking out for, and you need to dispel it right away. It was, I think, oh right, this is what happened in this fight. So I'll tell you what happened here, I remember now. So the tank unfortunately popped the dispel too early, and so we had to ride out this whole frenzy by using barrier, and you can see just how much damage is going out if you don't dispel it. So this is actually a good example of what happens if you don't dispel that barrier. It dispelled the debuff. So it finally went off. We survived because the healer used barrier in time, but just be mindful if you do accidentally miss a dispel, unless you're extremely fortunate or your healer has good fast reflexes to pop a barrier like that, it will kill your tank. So we luckily we were able to catch it with the barrier, otherwise it would be troublesome. So just keep that in mind. Now we do transition to phase 2 here, but in phase 2 the boss simply uses the same mechanics he had in phase 1. There's no additional mechanics you have to worry about, so just keep doing the same pattern, paying attention to the boss's abilities. He does use his abilities in a random order, so you just have to be ready to react to whatever he uses. And there you have it. So as you can see, this was a very long fight, almost a full 8 minutes to defeat this boss, but we got it in the end, and then we got the clear pop-up as being the first to defeat it. So there you have it. This is a very tough fight with a very heavy DPS check, but with understanding the mechanics and just keeping the consistency up throughout the fight, you will eventually get it down. So that's it. That's how you beat the 11th trial, and hope you found this video useful. So that's a wrap. Hit that like button if you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell so you know when the next video will be uploaded. And of course, join the Discord. Plenty of fun in the Discord, lots of active members. So look forward to seeing you there. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.